So welcome everybody to today's quarterly webinar. My name is Payne. I'm the Lead Wellbeing Coach here at Wellbeing People, where we have a wonderful vision to empower as many people as possible to live their very best life, for you to live your very best life for the longest. Okay, without further ado, what I'd like to do is to bring Amy on board here. And Amy, if you can turn your camera on and your video on. There she is. Hey Amy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. Very excited to be speaking with you today. Now, just before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of what we're going to be discussing today, I just want to do a quick intro. And Amy is a guest speaker today. She's the founder of the TOA Group. It's a consultancy with a unique system that removes wellbeing barriers, producing high performance for their teams. And it helps become more focused, time efficient, engaged, and productive. You focus a lot on one-to-one coaching, you and your business, workshops, keynote speaking, and mental health infrastructure as well. I had to read that, as you were probably gathering, because I couldn't remember all of that. That's wonderful. So thank you so much, Amy, for joining today. And I know that we've managed to catch up a couple of times, and I have to say your story is inspirational and fascinates me at no end. And that's where I'd like to start today, if I may. And I thought we'd begin by asking you to share your story, because people might have read the story in the descriptions and it's really emotive, but I think there's nothing quite like the actual words and verbalizing it that really brings it to life. So if you're happy to share your story with everybody quickly.
For sure. So afternoon, everyone. I'm Amy. I am the founder of TOA Group, and we remove wellbeing barriers to produce high-performing teams within companies and also for individuals. But that's not what I used to do. My bread and butter is marketing. In my early 20s, I founded a marketing agency called AM Marketing, and we specialized in search marketing, PPC, Google, for a number of range of clients. But a year after founding that business, I was hit head on in a high-speed car accident. I lost the use of my legs. I was in a wheelchair for some time. I found it very hard to walk. I couldn't sit down for more than half an hour, and was in chronic pain for 5 years. So if you think trying to run a business after a first year when you've just been put through all of this pain, it is well, quite a challenge, to say the least. And it resulted with a permanent spine damage, and I ended up having to have a spinal fusion to correct the damage as well. So I'm part titanium. I'm like a mini Wolverine.
I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that someone once described you as a digital Wolverine, and it's kind of stuck, right?
Yeah. So that's the hair as well. So I was under so much stress in terms of I had PTSD, I had anxiety, my hair fell out due to stress, so that's why it's shaved. I donated it to the Little Princess Trust, a charity that make wigs for children with cancer. But despite all that, I was able to grow that business to a top 30 Google partner. We had some global clients. We won Amazon awards, Drum awards. We were very, very successful. But after my spinal fusion and coming into COVID, we were hit with tragedy again when my husband and business partner took his own life in the first lockdown. So you can just sort of imagine being in this position of I've lost my body. I'm in a wheelchair at the time. My business is on the edge during COVID and losing so many clients, and I've lost my best friend and husband. It was really, really, really hitting rock bottom. And getting to that stage was actually it was incredibly humbling experience, but it does teach you the power of true surrender, and it teaches you what's important. And being at the stage I am now, having founded TOA Group, I rebuilt my body, I rebuilt my mind. I invested very heavily in a lot of therapy, a lot of self-care. I read every single every book in the library, took all the supplements, did all the work, went to ashrams, you name it, I did it. And when people would say to me, like, how are you still here? Like, how are you still smiling? How are you still kind? How are you still functioning as a human being? And there is that idea of, oh, you just, put one foot in front of the other. And I realized that that wasn't true. I realized that in all of my teaching and learning and investing in myself, I'd actually created a system. And I'd taken that system, I'd applied it to business, I'd applied it to me personally, used what worked, and then got rid of the deadwood and what didn't actually work. And then that's what TOA Group is founded on. The workshops were created for businesses, for individuals, so that you could genuinely, it doesn't matter whether you've broken your back or broken a toe, you can apply these principles to your daily life, both in teams and individually and as a whole company, in order to actually achieve your goals, no matter what life throws at you.
Yes, it's such an amazing. And didn't you walk like 600 kilometers or something, or do some sort of
one of my goals while I was in my wheelchair, one of my goals was to hike solo again. And yeah, 2 years later, I hiked 600 kilometers solo around Europe, just with a backpack, and yeah, it was incredible. But yeah, some of the way I got to that is some of what things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, such an amazing story and journey to go from where you were to where you are is truly inspirational. I mean, as I mentioned at the top of the session here, we connected, and afterwards I pinged you a little note saying, "Oh, do you know what? Loved my chat. It was brilliant. I was so inspirational, and I feel so calm."
Oh, good.
Because do you know what it puts it in perspective, doesn't it? And you're thinking, hold on a second, the things that I worry about, do I really need to attach that much importance to those things, really?
Yeah, I mean, there's an important thing to be said there, because what we're doing today and what I say to all my sessions is, just because I've been through a lot of rubbish doesn't mean that what you're going through is any less than, and like, you shouldn't invalidate yourself in that way. Like, your 10 out of 10 is your 10 out of 10. If it's affecting you and it's making you feel a certain way, that's valid. You shouldn't, like, I suppose, gaslight yourself into thinking like, oh, my problems don't matter because Amy's been through this. That's not what it's about. But it is a bit about, oh, okay, well, if she's been through that and can achieve that, then maybe I can apply some of that learning to what I'm going through.
Yeah, it was great because it just prompted a lot of reflection for me, which is always wonderful, isn't it? It's always great. So, such a fascinating story, as we said. And how did you find that your perceptions around work, did they change in some way after your story, or because of your traumas?
Absolutely. I think I started work, as many of us do. I think I was achieving a lot very, very quickly in my career. So I was 21 and I was managing like this global account for Holland and Barrett, and I was working ridiculous hours, sort of 60-hour weeks. I think some days only spending 3 days out of a month at home, and just thought that I've got to prove myself, got to cut my teeth, I had my first breakdown at 22. Like, before that, several burnouts, just because I was in the corporate world, just go, 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 go. And after the crash, and actually being in a position of, I realized that there's 3 different types of capacity. I realized that we've got our mental capacity, we've got our physical capacity, and we've got emotional capacity, which I wasn't taking into account. And being in a position of being in so much physical pain sitting that I physically couldn't sit for more than half an hour, it makes you made me very, very mindful of what meetings I chose to have, and made me very, very mindful of, I was almost forced to say no. So it really harnessed my mind into, okay, well, we're only going to go down the things we really think are going to be valuable. And therefore, that was incredibly powerful, because if we've all of us had that, if all of us had that training of, okay, if you give too much, if you do things you don't want to do, or you do something that you should have said no to when you weren't feeling right about it, if you had the physical pain aspect, we wouldn't do it. So I'm, in a strange way, very grateful for it. And now I realize that you can work smarter, not harder. You can say no and people will still respect you. You can be successful without working a 60, 70-hour week.
Yeah.
Quite easily.
Yeah. And you mentioned, like, earlier on in your career, you were just at it, constantly busy. And so when we kind of reflect around kind of toxic productivity, what does that mean? Because sometimes you hear these buzzwords and these phrases and things like that. So how would you describe toxic productivity?
So for me, there's two, we've got to think about two different areas when we're talking about toxic productivity, because we talk about the company and the individual. So you can be toxically productive as an individual, and actually the company culture is okay. So in terms of being an individual, so like I've got like a load of notes here so I can get it all down for everyone. So this is when we're, as an individual, there's this drive to be productive to unhealthy extremes. So it's almost like we just always have to be achieving, and it's almost like achievement is a tie to our self-worth. So unless we're achieving something, unless we're getting results, we don't feel good about ourselves. And so we push, and it's often to an extreme where like the urge to be productive is so uncontrollable that it's at the expense of our physical health and our mental health.
Yeah, it's almost if you're not working, you're not satisfied.
Yeah, exactly. And often this, when people, like, we find with toxically productive people, as I have been, I mean, I only know this because I used to be one until recently, and I still get that call in my head that tries to bring me back to it. That when you're resting, that you are in some way not good enough. When actually that's one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, is that in resting you are doing something. You are charging that battery. You cannot use a phone unless you charge it. Yeah. You're the same as a human being. You need to charge in order to be at that 100% capacity.
Yeah. I do get it because lots of it kind of, I draw parallels because my background is health and fitness, and we talk about fitness and you talk about the adaptations that occur through fitness. Sometimes people believe it's when we're doing the work itself, where we're in the gym or we're lifting weights or we're doing our movement or our exercise, that's when the gains occur. It's not, is it? It's when we train correctly, we do the right things, but we give ourselves time to recover, repair, restore, regenerate, rejuvenate.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Fitness is a great example because we're talking about physical capacity there, and rest is so important for the muscle in order to restore and rejuvenate. And you will actually end up with better progress than someone that doesn't rest, doesn't stretch, doesn't lower their deload days, and just keeps on at it and ends up injured. And then we're talking the same thing with burnout. So that's in terms of an individual. If you fear you may be a toxically productive individual, and it's not your fault. A lot of us are like this, and we are in a society that is go 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 go. Social media pushes this as well. God knows how many ads I get on a daily about, oh, you should do a side hustle and you should get up at 4 a.m. and jump into an ice river. No.
Yeah. Just because it's
I don't want to do that. I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. and jump into an ice river. I'm not going to do that. But this sort of constant back of the mind pushing that's what you should be doing to be successful, that's what we call toxic productivity. In terms of a workplace, when I go into workplaces and some of my clients, like, this is where we see things like some of the signs are, so you've got a high turnover rate of staff. That's often like your key. It's often inexplicable. Like, there are a lot of staff turning over each year, and we don't really know why. A lot of people are leaving, and they're having issues with recruitment and issues with retention. This is the sort of place where you might get emails after hours when you're not within your place of work, or that you are on holiday and you're still getting emailed. A lot of people are working late, or you're expected to work late, or almost you have to work late in order to get the job done. And that's where we'd say there's poor management there, because either your job needs to be separated into two people's jobs, or you're not being given your work correctly. That there's lack of boundaries as well, and that normally so the early signs, so if you're looking at your contract, it'd be like there's no flexi time, there's no mention of mental health days, there's no mention of sort of investment in your training and your personal development. And there's like this huge focus on success and results, rather than you as an individual person, which then causes this expectation that you've got to go above and beyond just to get your normal job done.
Yeah, I was like racking my brain a little bit, trying to think of causes perhaps for toxic productivity, and I wrote a few. One of them was like self-imposed expectations that that I kind of wrote down. I mean, yeah, those sorts of, and competition. I was another one. So if you have a competitive personality, I've written down here, if co-workers are doing the 10 or 12 hours or something, you might feel that you're inclined to do it as well. If you have that competitive nature, it might kind of cause that thing to happen. Another one was that company culture that you mentioned as well. Perhaps you have to be seen, or perhaps the
Yeah, I mean,
those sorts of
we
things.
find with individuals as well that often it's tied to self-esteem as well. So there's almost this you don't receive the validation from yourself internally, therefore you're seeking outside validation. So and this is only, take this with a pinch of salt, because there's a whole variety of different reasons, and it's often a mix of everything. But often when we feel bad about ourselves, or we've got low confidence, and I speak from myself in this, when I had very low confidence and low self-esteem, it's almost like the successes at work and reaching targets was my form of validation.
Yeah.
Myself. That was my self-worth. And because I wasn't getting it internally, I was seeking outside sources for that external validation, work results being the key one.
Yeah. And I guess if we are low in confidence, it can be more challenging to say no, or not right now, to other things, like work.
Yeah.
Like work.
Absolutely. There's this, I think, if you even not just work, friends and family.
Yeah.
How many times have all of us said yes when we should have said no? Or someone asks us to do something and we think this is going to be, or go to an event that you don't want to go to. And I found that actually, if you do start saying no, when you start doing it, it's really bloody scary. You sort of think, oh my God, what have I done? But people respect you more. They respect,
yeah.
they respect your time more.
Yes, exactly. Respecting other people's time is really, really important, isn't it? Really important. I just want to, because a question's just popped up here, and it says feeling one has to work extra almost to justify one's existence within the working team. There's a question mark there. I don't know if there's a question there. Can you take anything out of that?
Feeling like one has to work extra in order to do I would say, but is that because the team are the team putting pressure on that person, or are they putting pressure on themselves?
Yeah.
And there seems like there might be a little bit of imposter syndrome coming in there as well. It may not be related to that is a question, but I had a brilliant scenario last week with a workshop that I did for a very large telecoms company, and there were two people in this group, very incredibly high intelligent people, all Cambridge graduates, and both of them were doing that. They were working extra hard because they felt the other person was smarter than them and had all the answers. But when we actually sat down in a room, and they both told us a story about the same event, in which one thought the other person was really, really clever and they weren't good enough, so they worked extra hard, but the other person was thinking exactly the same thing so they were almost like pushing each other to work toxically, but both thinking the same thing. So often we find that actually a lot of these things we're putting onto ourselves rather than them actually being a reality.
Yeah, the person that asked the question has just said it's self-imposed, as they're a little bit older than most of the other guys in the team.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. So, I mean, I'm curious to because I like to kind of interact with the guys that are watching and pose perhaps a self-awareness question. So now people are more aware of toxic productivity and what we've been talking about. Would you say that you experience individual toxic productivity yourself? Feel free to put a why or no or not sure. You don't have to share your answer, but it's certainly a nice self-awareness question, isn't it? So people are starting to say, well, actually, I do notice some of these times now. And so what are the signs? If we pause for a second, what are some of the warning signs for toxic productivity then, Amy?
Oh, well, we've got the ones for the company that we've just been through, but within yourself, I would say, let me put down, because I want to make sure we get through all of them. So the things that we would say is that you are not making time for yourself and your other hobbies and just even rest time. So it could be that you normally like to go to the gym or cook, and you just simply do not have time for these. that you are saying yes to things that you want to say no to. And you are being placed in situations like organizing things for people, doing things for people that you don't want to be doing, and that you're perhaps not taking holiday properly, that you're not having time to sleep. I mean, just basic times to do, just function as a human being, that you're not taking even time for breaks.
Yeah.
Or just have a proper lunch.
Yeah. And similar, quite similar signs to kind of burnout as well. And reflect around the kind of initial stages of burnout. You know, that compulsion to prove oneself, the neglection of our basic needs. You know,
exactly.
not prioritizing ourselves.
Exactly. I've just seen a really good note from I think Tracy Cunningman, who said it's difficult when you start a new job and you want to please everyone. I think, but that's the thing, is that you don't, starting a new job, you've been hired for that job because you are qualified and you have the qualifications. Taking on extra work or pleasing everyone or being a people pleaser, people pleasing is a form of toxic productivity. So going into that job and setting those boundaries straight away and doing your job and doing it well, but also having the confidence to say no, is actually going to make you be like this is a really confident person who knows herself and who knows her job and knows her boundaries, and that's someone that I want to work with.
I've just noticed another note. It was really interesting for me. It can be even harder when management is not taking a break for work. And so how important is it then for kind of businesses to be aware of toxic productivity?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the key signs, again, that we get into is that if it's from the top down, then it's a culture issue. And that is generally what we find. It's very, very hard to have a really good team. You've got to have a really, really good, strong manager with a really good team if the whole culture, the whole company is toxically productive. And if you imagine sort of a triangle, many companies are based like that. And you've got the CEO at the top and then everyone underneath. But actually what we do is we try and flip it on its head. So you have the CEO at the bottom and then everyone at the top, and it's much more of a collaborative effort, because in terms of leadership and empathy is one of the most important leadership skills that you can have in any business. And what we try and say to CEOs, actually, look, you should be collaboration should be basically 70% of your leadership style, and the sort of dictatorship aspect should only be around about 5%. And that's when really, like, look, you need to do this, get out of this burning building. It's not for your everyday, this I say goes. And that's when we then see we get into a whole host of other issues, not just toxic productivity.
It reminds me of a quote we use in ambassador training. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, which is a lovely reflection around the power of that. So, you know, we've spoken quite a lot around toxic productivity so far. So what kind of useful tools or behaviors then kind of might people begin to kind of take action with or apply?
Start to say no. Honestly, that's the biggest one. Starting to say no is the key one. Setting boundaries. I think it's difficult to because you can go straight in and then just sort of start saying no, and almost go the other way. So a really good exercise that I do with all of my clients, no matter what workshop they're doing, is we sit down and we make 2 lists. And on one side we put, this is what lifts me. So these are the things that give me energy. They give me, they make me feel good. They boost me. I feel like I have more energy after I do this thing. So it could be cooking, spending time with your family, spending time with your pets, and anything like that. On the other side, we put, this is what drains me. And sometimes people don't realize what drains them until they're in that situation. So, and this is a situation in which you feel afterwards, you feel deflated. You feel like you have less energy, almost like letting air out of a balloon. So you make those 2 lists. And then you start doing, it sounds simple, you start doing more of what's on the lift list and less of what's on the no list. And when you have to do something that's on the no list, so for me it's admin. I despise admin. I despise anything to do with numbers and spreadsheets. So that's on my drain list. So if I have to do something like this, because we all have to do things in life that drain us, that's life, then I will sandwich it between two things that are on the lift list. It's a really good way to curate your diary and make sure that you sort of have a roller coaster of things that lift you and things that drain you throughout the day, so you can accomplish your goal, rather than ending up at the end of the day with just a whole load of drain and loads of things that you said yes to.
Yeah.
Another thing as well is implementing breaks. You got to implement.
Yeah, we spoke about this before. I mean, it's crucial, isn't it? As we said the physical adaptations, the fitness, the developments that we get through fitness is because we give ourselves time to recover, that nervous system time to recover, and muscle time to grow. And it's the same with our mental and emotional well-being as well, isn't it?
Exactly right. And there are a number of different studies that say like breaks make you more productive. And it can be something as simple as, so obviously we're doing an hour webinar today. Normally my meetings are only 45 minutes or 25 minutes. So if someone tries to book out a half an hour, it's a 25 meeting, and then 5 minutes at the end I take to myself to either do some deep breathing or meditate, make a cup of tea, and give myself that time. Never back to back. And the same with an hour meeting, taking that 15 minutes at the end to decompress, make notes, meditate, spend time with my pets, like anything that is going to lift me back up and give me some energy back.
Yeah, I was going to say anything that's on that lift, that self-aware. I love a little self-awareness kind of tool. There's nothing quite, because it's the first step in change, isn't it? You have to notice first, right? So
exactly. Noticing is the key, and then being strict with yourself. Like, we don't really associate strictness with well-being. They sort of almost don't mix, but that you have to be very, very strict. And in doing that and implementing that, I could if I did I used to do 3 hours back-to-back meetings, one after the other, which would just exhaust me. But now I can easily do 3 lots of 45 minutes with 15-minute breaks afterwards, no problem, because I'm gauging my emotional and mental capacity and bringing it back up at the end.
And that, by the sounds of it, contributes towards your ease of work.
Absolutely. And in terms of diary curation, if there's something that I know is going to drain me, so it could be that I've got to have a very, very difficult conversation, or I'm going to be in a session in which I have to give a lot to the client emotionally, I will always book that at the beginning of the day, because I know that after 2 o'clock I'm going to be more tired, I'm going to be hungry, like I'm going to as we all are. So that will always be at the beginning of the day in diary curation, when I've got that energy and that capacity. And
there's loads of stuff popping up on the chat that I'm trying to listen to you.
Let's go for it, yeah.
and see what they say. So we've always learned or leaned towards not saying no, but not now, to manage expectations about priorities and capacity. Saying no tends to result in escalation to the next level, especially in large corporate organizations.
That's very interesting. I mean, when we say no, it's not when we don't mean like when someone requests of something of your time and you say no, like this is an aggressive thing. Yes, it has to be collaboration, but yes, it can be a case of saying, I don't have capacity for that right now, but I can do it for you tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
And setting that expectation. Or in some cases, that isn't part of my job role, but I moving from the phrase of no worries to happy to help, just so that people are aware that you have boundaries, and that aware that if you are going to do something for them that is out of your job role, or do something that you shouldn't have to do, that you are doing it and monitoring your own capacity, that you're not just saying, yeah, that's fine, no worries, as though your time is worth nothing.
Yeah, I like it. It reminds me of reflecting around the phrase work-life balance, and changing the balance word to work-life priorities, because there are days when, guess what, I got to prioritize work, deadlines, last minute changes, things that pop up, and there are days when I need to prioritize me, and there are days when I'm gonna prioritize me.
Exactly. And that's a sign again of a good company. Is that if a company allows you to prioritize you, if you have a child who is poorly, if you yourself are poorly, if you have to have a situation in which life becomes a priority over work, a healthy work environment that's leading with empathy will allow you to do that and have the flexi time for you to do your work in other hours that suit around that occurrence.
Yeah, there's an interesting note in the chat again. There's a guilt attached to having work tasks taken away. When you say you can't help, sometimes it's hard to stay firm. It's interesting because I was doing a bit of reading around this, and there was a phrase that I come across. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's called productivity shame. It's really fascinating, feeling that you aren't allowed to do things that are unproductive for you. It reminds me of my wife. I hope she's not going to, but she feels that she always has to do stuff constantly. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
That's really interesting, and that I think that feeds into like when your boss stays late, you feel you have to stay late.
Yes,
I think that's a productive activity. But then again, you think, well, then who's giving the rating of what isn't productive? So I've just said there, of unproductive tasks, but who's rating those tasks as unproductive? That's all about context.
Yes,
and that's generally coming from us.
Yes. Yeah, who puts the pressure on us? What is I love their reflections. Okay, so we've spoken about many things already, and just want to kind of draw it in and invite people to reflect around what you've been saying and what we've been discussing, and ask any questions. If you want to, just drop them into the chat function here or the Q&A tab as we're kind of bringing it into a bit of a close, because now that you've mentioned like the 45 minutes now, Amy, that we want to give people a break, right? Just in case you're jumping straight onto another call. So you mentioned a number of things in terms of actions or behaviors that people could experiment with. And we here at Wellbeing People, we use the phrase 1% progress experiments, that progress mindset. As long as we're attempting something, we're either going to win or learn. You're never going to lose, right? So you mentioned a number of things. I'm going to ask you to try and narrow it down to just one thing. If you could encourage people that are watching today or people that might watch the recording to experiment with one action that might help them manage it, what kind of jumps out at you as an experiment?
Well, we've spoken a lot about saying no, haven't we? And being, I would like to see people in the chat that particularly if you do have issues with setting boundaries, to set one boundary that you wouldn't normally do.
Nice.
That can be professionally or personally. So perhaps an example, my great aunt last week invited me to a birthday party for a family member who I do not like and who is quite a toxic person. And I know that the event itself is going to be very difficult and drain me. So I've just said no, I'm not going to be attending. And knowing that I would like to see, it doesn't need to be as aggressive as that, but I just may say no, or I can do that another day. I'd like to see the people in the chat give that a go, give that an experiment, and see what happens. See what happens to you emotionally, like how you feel inside, what sort of feelings come up. Let's practice a bit of self-awareness and think, what am I feeling here? Like, why do I feel bad about saying no to this? Why do I feel bad about just having this communication with someone? But then also see what happens on the other side as well.
Love that.
Whether it is as disastrous as we all think it's going to be.
Well, that's it. What is it? Susan Jeffers in her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I think she refers to a percentage. I don't know how accurate it is, but she says 95% of what we worry about never happens. And even when it does, it's never as bad as we think it's going to be or we believe it's going to be.
Exactly. I mean, fear is just an anxiety that's built up about an event that isn't happening.
Yeah. It's
the fear of the future, which has absolutely no certainty whatsoever.
Yeah.
So you might as well just give it a go.
Yeah, exactly. You might as well get that. So I'm just trying to bring it in. So experiment with setting a boundary that reduces toxic productivity and improves your well-being.
Exactly. And in terms of, I suppose, a bit more, because that's quite I like to set SMART goals. So for me,
Cool.
goals, they need to be actionable. They need to be, they need to have a time attributed to them. So you need to be able to see whether you've achieved it or not, rather than
Nice.
just an arbitrary general, I'm going to do this. But a bit more of a general goal is I would like to try and practice more kindness
Nice.
yourself, because on the other hand we can be toxically productive the other way. We can be, I've got to get up at 4 a.m. and I have to do my ice bath and I have to make my green smoothie and then I have to go to the gym, and I've gone that way as well, where almost had to follow the self-care plan in such a regimented way that I realized I was being toxically productive with my well-being.
Yes.
And so adding tiny little things. So if you're going to do something for you that's different, add something small, and don't beat yourself up if you don't do it every day, because it takes at least 3 months to implement a habit.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're going to make that green smoothie and you don't do it every single day, don't beat yourself up on Thursday because you make it. Just think, that's okay, I'm human, and make it on a Friday.
Yeah. I think we can all agree that well-being is a bit of a moving target for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it doesn't. Those once in a lifetime transformations are not going to happen over the course of a couple of weeks, and it's those small, incremental, marginal kind of experimental changes.
1% is bigger than 0%. If you can't go to the gym and you think I can't go to the gym, that's fine. Just go for a 10-minute walk, because 1% is bigger than 0%.
Yeah, nice. 1% is bigger than 0%. Love it. Okay. I'm going to invite everybody, just as we bring this to a close now, I'm just going to invite everybody to reflect around what we've been discussing, and drop in any questions that you might have just as we bring it to a close here today. Drop them into the chat function. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to launch the feedback poll. Hopefully that's launched. Before you escape today, jump on the feedback poll and complete the feedback there. I guess just one last thing, Amy. If people wanted to contact you to discuss anything that you've been talking about today, or discuss your business and your organization and your work, where might be the best place that they might find you?
Absolutely. So you can go to toagroup.co.uk. That's the TOA Group website. It's a bit sparse at the moment. I have to tell you, we need to put some more things on there. Too busy doing the workshops. But also on LinkedIn, if people want to contact me directly, Amy Hopper on LinkedIn. I answer all of my messages to all of my people individually. So yeah, that'd be the best place to start a conversation. I'd be more than happy to chat to anyone on the chat today. Yeah,
really, really wonderful. And it's interesting just getting some feedback here as well, just to let everybody know that this session is recorded, and you will be able to access this recording at Wellbeing People, wellbeingpeople.com. So feel free to come and jump on there. We'll probably end up on our YouTube channel as well. And any other questions just to finish up with you? I mean, I wrote one question down that I figured I just had to ask you, Amy, because of your story. And and the question is this: I ask it a number of times every week, but I'm really fascinated with your answer. What does optimal well-being mean to you?
What a question.
Good luck. Good luck.
For me, optimal well-being is mind and body working together in harmony. So when I talk about the capacities, about physical, mental, emotional capacity, it's all those three elements coming together, that I'm feeling good mentally, that I'm feeling good emotionally, that I'm feeling good physically, and for all of them to be sort of peak and one feeding into the other, not prioritizing one over the rest. That's probably optimal well-being for me.
Lovely.
Yeah. But what a question.
I know. Sorry, you weren't expecting that, but no. Here's a question we ask quite often, just to kind of because I'm fascinated. It's such a wonderful story, and he's such an inspirational person. It just remains for me to say thank you to everybody. Everybody's dropping in some lovely bits of feedback, so thank you so much for that. Amy, it's been truly lovely speaking with you, gaining your insights and your expertise and your reflections. It's been really, really beautiful. I've really enjoyed myself, as I knew I would. So thank you so much, Amy, for all your support with our quarterly webinar today. And of course, I wish you every success moving forward with your career.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much to everyone for joining and all of the lovely comments here. Mary Yarwood, definitely go to the toilet. That's very important.
Yeah, we didn't pause there. No. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes. Everybody, we've got 15 minutes. So a little bit of a turnaround time. So come up for air. There we go. See how you go on. Brilliant. I'm going to stop the recording and welcome everybody to come and find out a little bit more about Wellbeing People and come and discover Amy Hopper as well and what she can offer as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Amy, thank you again. I'm going to finish the webinar and wish everyone a very warm and sunny day. Apparently it's going to be extremely hot today in the UK. So hydrate effectively and enjoy your day, everybody. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks so much.